Hi everyone, so today I'm going to be doing some maintenance on the Borneo-inspired tank. This is where my Chiliosporas and half-beaks live. The reason for this today is because I've actually got someone coming around to pick up some of the cuttings of the narrow Java ferns that I have in here, and I've got to take those cuttings before they arrive. So yeah, I'm going to be doing that. That's my first job, is to trim some of the plants back. I did notice there's some holes developing in some of the Java fern leaves, so I think potentially they're just getting a bit too dense and sucking up all the nutrients before, well, yeah, everything else. I'm not actually noticing anything in the crypts yet, but Java fern definitely getting a lot of this damage to the leaves, and I want to trim it back, get back onto fertilizing this tank, making sure that they grow nice and healthy and look their best. So this tank is an Aqua Oak 110 doors and drawers model. I think they're only available in the UK. This lid is quite heavy and doesn't want to get wet, so I just move that out of the way before I do any tank maintenance, just to be safe. I then have a small net that I always use to catch little shrimplets out of the filter, my trusty NT-Lab sponge, which I'll get to later, and my 3 different light units. I've actually got 2 Aqua Rays and a Fluval Aqua Sky on here. It's what I had kicking about, and it produces a good range of lighting across the tank. One day I would obviously like to replace it with a better single or double unit to do the whole tank, but it's what I've got and I've got to make the most of that. So I just need to move those away off the cover slides so I can get these off. Pour the water off. Condensation, don't want that to be on the floor. And move that out of the way. So now I'm ready to get started. I've got a towel that I'm going to put down because I'm going to make a mess and I don't want to ruin the wood floor. So I'll pop the towel down to keep everything dry beneath. And then first thing I'm going to do is take out the floating stems of limnophylla that I put in here to breed the half-beaks on, because I don't want them to get in the way, because they do take up quite a lot of the surface. I'm going to be trimming some of the floating plants, or removing some of the floating plants as well. So let's remove those as well. I'm now just going to drain out about 5 litres of water from the tank, just to drop that water level slightly. It's a bit too high and it's quite a tall tank, my arms are quite short. Five litres out, and then we'll turn off the heater of the filter. That's on the biomass, which we'll get to in a second, just so we don't have the surface movement that will get in the way, basically. So there is 5 litres of water out. As you can see, there is a lot of floating plants at this end of the tank, blocking a lot of the light, so I'm going to strip out some of these as well. A good reason for doing this is I'm not finding any half-beak eggs anymore, and unfortunately I lost the one that I hatched the other week. It didn't ever start feeding, but I'm not finding any more eggs, so I'm just going to remove some of the excess floating plants, leaving enough of them to still feel safe and secure, but hopefully reducing different places that they can deposit their eggs, meaning that they should concentrate putting them on the limnophylla rather than the roots of these floating plants, which I can't really check. Having that one area to check every day is much easier for me. Yeah, it's important not to remove it all, because they do need it for their natural habitat and the natural behaviours. They need that cover to dart off to if they get scared. But it'll soon come back, so just take out a big chunk of plants. As I said, I was getting rid of some of the Java fern cuttings. You can also get rid of the water lettuce if anyone ever wanted it. It's actually better to give it to other hobbyists rather than just disposing of it, because it obviously helps other people get into the hobby, but also these plants are essentially an invasive species, and we don't want them to get banned from the hobby, so just chucking them in your garden or whatever is not a suitable way to do that. need to dispose of them correctly, or just keep them alive in someone else's tank. Chilies are up waiting for food already. Little piranhas, these guys. Not scared of anything. So now I've made it so much easier for me to get in and see what I'm actually doing up in here. Just move the excess floating plants that I've left in out of the way, and we will have a look at the Java fern and take some cuttings of it. As you can see, there are quite a lot of damage to the leaves and some leaves that have very much died. So as well as taking some cuttings to sell on, I'm going to prune some of these off to make the whole tank look a little bit nicer. It will obviously mean that the tank in general won't look quite as mature and grown in for a few weeks while it bounces back from the heavy trimming. But yeah, as you can see, there's so much Java fern in here. It's blocking the flow, it's blocking the light, and it's going to be sucking up so much nutrients. So anti-lab scissors, of course, as always, and these nano ones are great for getting into little gaps and not ruining the rest of the tank. So I can just snip off these bits that have become unattached to the wood and making it look a little bit untidy. So yeah, grab those out, get them out of the way. And down here as well, we've got some more long bits that are starting to grow away from the wood and starting to creep over to where the Crypticon balances are growing, so get rid of those as well. And these will make good parts for the bag for the person coming this morning. So I've gathered up all the good bits on top of the tank, and I'm just going to pop them into a old fish bag. I always make sure I dry out the fish bags properly and leave them to be fully dry for several weeks to make sure risk of pathogens being still in that bag are removed. Obviously, if there's any bags that come with fish that aren't looking too good and develop anything in quarantine, I get rid of those bags. I don't reuse them. Just a safety precaution, so we're not spreading any diseases to any of the other hobbyists, which would obviously be bad, but also I reuse these bags to save plastic. So after a small little interlude while I gave the plants to the guy that was coming for them this morning, it's time to continue the maintenance session and remove any of the dead and dying and just not so good leaves and sections of these Java ferns. It's going to be a pretty brutal trim. I really want to make sure it's back to looking its best in a few weeks, so yeah. So I pulled out a whole lot more Java fern. Most of it was stuff which had quite a bit of holes in, but I've also, as you can see, a really nice piece there. I'm going to keep hold of this for a few days, see if anyone else has any interest. I've already bagged up enough for the person who's coming this morning. But yeah, if no one else wants that, I might dot some into some of the other tanks, but otherwise it will be disposed of. So I've given the sides of the tank a good scrub, and that's obviously do that before I take the water out, so then when I do the water change I remove all of that algae free floating in the water. I didn't quite realise how long this balance has got. It's, well, I think it's 45, maybe 50 centimetre tall aquarium, and this is almost a metre long, because this is coming from right at the back corner. So yeah, this stuff is insane how tall it gets. It just drapes across the surface nicely. It almost eliminates the need for floating plants together. It's obscene how tall that is. Obviously, the lighting in this tank isn't that bright, so it stayed nice and green, whereas in my plant farm tank, it's got a lovely sort of deepish red colour. But the green works for me in this tank. Until I get new lighting, it will probably stay like this. So now let's do some filter maintenance. Again, before I do the water change, because I don't want to have all that particulates coming out of the filter after being maintained, clouring the water and then not removing that. So filter maintenance, and then I'll get on to doing the actual water change. First job in doing the filter is I'm just going to do a bit of maintenance on the spray bar. I like to do this as regularly as possible, if I can get it out. There we go. Actually looking quite clean, just a bit of brown at the end. And what I do is I use the spring brush from NT Labs and just stick that in. Just make sure I keep it nice and clean, stops that algae build-up and keeps the flow rate coming out of all the holes really nicely. Doesn't need to be perfect. It's not crystal, nice glass outflow or anything like that. It's just the Owaza one that comes with it. Give it a good scrub, rinse out in a bucket of water, and back in. Simple. There we go. That is now in place. And then we also want to maintain the other side. So let's see if I can take this out without disturbing everything. Okay. Now this one hasn't been touched in a while and you can see how bad it's got. So yeah, take this one out and scrub that as well. Now these ones come apart. So I can just do the tube and do the strainer separately. So we'll do the tube first. Actually, I'll do this in a bucket because I think it's going to be gross. That's all going to come out the other end. Look at how brown that is. Disgusting. That will improve the flow rate through my filter. Keeps it nice and clean. I'll do the same with this quickly. Actually, I need the bigger side. The best thing about this spring brush, we've got two sizes for different size pipe work. This one is actually slightly wider, so give it a good clean. This has actually stayed pretty nice. The issue with doing the inflows like this is the bristles do get stuck. And it takes a bit of force to get them loose. There we go. Give that a rush. Rinse off. Dry it so the metal doesn't rust. Shouldn't do anyway, but just in case, it is stainless. But always good practice just to dry it off anyway. And this can go back together. And back into the tank. Next I'm going to do the pre-filter. This again, obviously, was a Biomaster, so it's got a nice pre-filter for it. This is when I really need this towel. So, turn the lever, hose comes off. I have to lift this out because the pre-filter won't come out inside the cabinet. So then I can just take the pre-filter out. I like to just put my finger in that little hole there and drain some of the water out. Stops me making such a mess when I pour the rest out. And again, this sort of basically a spray bar inside the pre-filter can also be cleaned with the brush as well. Just pulls out. So I didn't actually need to clean the brush, rinse the brush off, because I need to clean this out as well. Give that a good clean. And then some people like to rinse the pre-filters off just under a tap because they're not there for biological filtration at all. It's just there for the removal of solid wastes. So you can just get this under a tap, which you wouldn't normally want to recommend doing in any filter foams because there's bacteria living on them. Today, I don't tend to do that because I don't like the idea of rinsing all the dish tank waste down the sink next to my clean dishes, so I'll just do it in the bucket and give it a good squeeze. I haven't done this for about 2 weeks and it's pretty brown, so it just shows how much waste is produced in these tanks. There's not much loading, but there is a lot of botanicals breaking down, and when you've got botanicals breaking down, you have a lot of solid waste that's going to get picked up by your filter as it breaks down, which is why a lot of people wouldn't run fine foams in their botanical aquariums. I don't in all of mine, but in this instance, it's in the house. I want nice sort of clear water without particulates. So that's done. Spray bar goes back in there, and then we'll just pop the clean foams back on the end. So, filters back together. Now this is where I should really clean out the pipes as well, but I can't bother to do that today, so that's going to be a job for another day. I'm just going to lift this back. So lift the fill back in. Push it back. Accidentally tip the light. Back on. Reconnect the filter. And if I just plug in the filter briefly, we'll get all of the sediment out. All that debris and disturbed stuff is going to come out, and then I can siphon all that out when I'm doing my water change. I'll leave this on fish for 30 seconds just to purge it through, turn it back off, then I'll put it back on when I've finished my maintenance. I don't like working in the tank with electrical items turned on. And I just turned on the filter here, no need to turn the heat back on. The heat can stay off until I am finished. Now, I'm not really a plant person, so I'm not entirely sure what the Java ferns are lacking, and I will do some research on that and find out sort of those holes in the leaf, what that's typically a sign of. If you know, do let me know in the comments. I'd really appreciate that. But for now, I'm just going to add in some of the Aquaforest Freshwater AF macro and micro nutrients, because it will just have a little bit of everything in there. And I know there's a lot of plant mass in this tank, especially when the floating plants grow back, so they'll soon get used up, whatever it is. But yeah, let me know if there is a lack of a specific nutrients, and I'll start dosing that more readily. But these two work really well for my planted tanks, and it's just nice and easy. Last thing to do is to get the cover slide and lid back on. So I didn't do too much damage to the overall look of the tank. It still looks quite mature. There are just a few bulb patches where I had to trim a bit harder because of the damage to the leaves. Didn't take them all out because I didn't want to leave it too bare. So yeah, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video of me maintaining my tank with some of the awesome stuff that I've got from NT Labs and Aquaforest. And yeah, I really recommend just always having sort of an advert up for your plant species that you grow really well. You'll just occasionally get a message that someone wants some cuttings, and you can either give it to them or charge a small fee just to make it a bit more worth your time. And that way you can, yeah, just help other hobbyists local to you. You can rehome some of your plants, and if you're charging a bit of money for it, you can get some money to then spend on some fish yourself, or you'll put it towards your next project. So yeah, definitely recommend doing that. I've always got Java fern and floating plants advertised on my local groups, just because I always pick cuttings and have to chuck it out. So as and when someone needs them, I can help them out. Yeah, that's it. Hopefully soon I'll be able to get to a fish shop and get some more fish for this tank. I really want to get when I set it up, I had aspirations of having sort of 50 chili borers in there. I have about 20, I think. So I want to add a lot more chili borers in there, maybe some blue neons, blue neon reservoir, that is. So yeah, that's hopefully I'll be able to get to the fish shop and get that done soon and do another video on this tank. But until then, thanks for watching. Goodbye.